if we, if the path continues as we're expecting, we will have to bring this to the Senate. It will be moving there next, and we're ready to push forward there. And I think we feel optimistic about our chances.
Okay, so that is one of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, pushing for Congress to go all the way with the release of the Epstein files. The House is going to take up that bill today. It's expected to pass with wide bipartisan support after President Trump switched from basically trying to kill that vote to endorsing it. But the bill's fate in the Senate actually remains unclear.
I have real concerns about the discharge and how it's drafted, as I've been saying for many months. But I do have some comfort that I think if and when it's processed in the Senate that they'll be able to correct some of those concerns that we have. The protection of victims and whistleblowers and all the rest.
Democratic Congressman from New York, Joe Morelle, is here in the chat to talk about this. We wanted to have you here because you were an early supporter of this discharge petition that's going to force this vote. Help me translate hallway speak there. He raised concerns that I've heard before. There are still victims here. There are whistleblowers. There are names of people who are not truly related to the crimes at play. So do you think that the Senate is going to make changes?
Look, this is all much ado about nothing. I mean, we can clearly protect whistleblowers, protect victims. That is our job and our responsibility. The Speaker makes it sound like it's rocket science. I think this is relatively easy to do. And the important point is not to create barriers to getting this out, but to make sure that we release it. Frankly, the president could release it today. He doesn't really need congressional action to do it. But this is just what I fear more and more of what we've seen over the last several months, which is just to continue to distract and distort and to take away from the real challenge here, which is getting the information out so the American public knows what has happened. And I think history is not going to be kind either to the president, I believe, long term, nor to the people who have looked like they're aiding and abetting his efforts to avoid accountability. Which we should say is through multiple administrations. And I want to ask you, what would success look like? I know what I hear from the victims about what they want. But for the people who are pushing this, what do you think is a good outcome? Well, I think for the information to be made public, so the American public. But is it done then? Would you suddenly just be like, well, that we solved it? Well, I think it depends on what's in it. I think it's a little hard to judge in advance of seeing the material what it is. But look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but to have watched the House not go into session for 5 consecutive weeks while they dealt with this issue, it tells me there's something deeply disturbing in these files that the president does not want to be made public. And it's only after he realized that he could not stop the vote in the House that he came out. It's like a little bit like, oh, there's a parade going there. I better jump in the front of it because it's coming anyway. So if there are Democrat names in here, what happens? Are people going to push for this the same way? Absolutely. I don't. You're saying yes as well? Is that the vibe in the party?
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have wanted for this to be made public, regardless of who's in there, because, and the Congressman has said this before, this should not be a partisan issue. This should be about the survivors. I don't care what Democratic names are in there. Let them all out. And if they were involved in something nefarious and illegal, then they should be prosecuted by the full extent of the law. We're going to see who crosses over in this vote today. I want to ask you something else because you're on the House Appropriations Committee. Yes. And so you actually will have to deal with the fallout of this health care subsidy issue, right? Basically, the government shutdown ended, but without a deal to extend the Obamacare subsidies. Was that a mistake from Senator Schumer? No, I would never second guess what the Senate was doing. I think what's clear is the Republicans have decided that they don't care about the Affordable Care subsidies. At least that's the message we're getting. I hope they reverse course on this. But this is going to mean significant increases in health insurance premiums for millions of Americans who go to work every day, but whose employers don't provide health insurance, and they go to the exchange to be able to find affordable health insurance. But can I ask you a question? You did criticize him in March, right? Back in March when it was about the extending, I think, was it another CR? Correct. You were like, look, why are you guys doing this? You're handing, you considered that a mistake. So what's the difference between March and November? Well, look, I voted no this week as well, because this is the same continuing resolution that was put together last March. So I object to it. What I think is
the question that the Senate, I've seen a number of senators who voted for it. I don't agree with them. However, and I would have continued to fight for this, but the decision they made is the decision they made. And what's really important, though, for us is to focus on how do we address the health care needs of people who struggle, who are going to be facing, because it's open enrollment period right now, we're going to face enormous increases. I was at the dry cleaner a week ago, and the woman at the desk who's working full-time said, I will not be able to afford health insurance if these premium subsidies aren't continued.
Yeah, and
so
I understand that. I think we learned that in your congressional district, 47,000 people who rely on tax credits to help get this insurance. Without the help, their monthly premiums would go up $122 for individuals, $244 for couples. So they're looking at a 40% increase.
And you consider this at a time when we're talking about getting $40 billion to Argentina to try to affect the outcome of their presidential election. The President of the United States is suing the Justice Department for $230 million because he feels wronged by an investigation which he was culpable for and was indicted in trying to overturn an election in the United States. And now we have U.S. senators asking for millions of dollars in the same space from American taxpayers. I want
to come to this in a minute, but I actually want to bring this up with you. I keep hearing about the Argentina money, and I keep hearing about it on the right. People that are like, what is going on? What is this administration doing, giving money just to kind of bail someone out politically when people are looking for cash at home? What's the debate about?
Well, it goes back to the earlier conversation we had about focusing on foreign affairs versus domestic issues, and I think that that's where some of the concerns are on the right, Audie. As it pertains to some of these very issues that the congressman's talking about, I would love to see Congress have a conversation about health care. I think what you've indicated is there are problems with the Affordable Care Act that need to be addressed. I think if Republicans and Democrats are able to come together and solve some of those issues so that money isn't going to the insurance companies, but actually more Americans are able to get that money directly and afford health care, that's a good thing.
Can you respond to that? Hearing this idea floated more and more, I think Senator Cassidy in the Senate said the same thing. Put it in people's health savings accounts. Why give it to insurers directly as subsidies?
Well, I will say this. I chaired the insurance committee when I was back in the New York State legislature. We have not-for-profit insurers in Rochester, which are really different than some of the insurers around the country. But fundamentally, health care is getting much more expensive. Right? I mean, we need to look at not only what drives insurance rates and look at insurance companies, but also the delivery of health care.
But do you feel like Obamacare has improved things or not?
Oh, there's no question. More Americans have health insurance than at any time in American history. That's directly because of the Affordable Care Act exchange policies.
But it hasn't brought the cost of it down in any way.
Well, I don't think, I mean, if you look at
the... It has in some ways.
Of it increasing has actually decreased because of the ACA. If the ACA was not in place, healthcare premiums would be incredibly impossible. And Republicans have yet, for 15 years, they have not been able to come up with a viable alternative and have not even been able or willing to sit down with Democrats to say, let's try to come up with something together.
Are there conversations happening on appropriations, real ones, about these alternative ideas?
Absolutely. And I think there will continue to be conversations, both, and I agree with you that it ought to be a bipartisan way to get people together to say what makes the most sense. Yes, I think the Republican idea that I heard floated by the president is simply to give money to everybody so that they don't have to get the subsidies. There's real challenge. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with health insurance. But then, you know, after 15 years of listening to Donald Trump come up with concepts of a plan, I mean, it's clear he doesn't know anything about health care or health care insurance because you'd think that there would be a proposal that he'd be advancing. I heard him say that he talked a little bit over the weekend about it. I mean, this is like a passing thing when it's like, well, I'm going to talk about it for a few minutes and then I'm going to move on because my attention span is about the same as a fly. And I can't focus on anything. So I'll just say something in passing, and let's move on, and maybe I'll give people money. Maybe I won't. It's great. This is no way to deal with.
I can't believe you're bringing it up because we're actually about to talk about this next, Congressman. Stay with me. We're talking about this idea of the president having a few ideas about getting checks to Americans. So that includes rebates from savings connected to DOGE cuts, bonuses to air traffic controllers and TSA agents who showed up for work during the government shutdown, and now a $2,000 dividend from the administration's tariff policy to middle-income families.
We're going to be issuing dividends later on, somewhere prior to, probably in the middle of next year, a little bit later than that, of thousands of dollars for individuals moderate income, middle income. We're going to pay down debt. You know, we have a lot of money from tariffs.
Okay, you might be waiting for your check, but unfortunately the numbers at this point don't add up. It would cost $600 billion to actually cut those checks, according to an analysis by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, which is frankly more than the tariff revenue already brought in or projected. Group chat is back. You brought up this idea of you just putting your head down and chuckling now. What are you doing, Congressman, here? We got to talk.
I feel like listening to the president is a little bit like being at the corner bar and there's a guy in the end in the corner stool who's had too many, just keeps spouting off crazy ideas. That feels like the president of the United States these days.
Not a crazy idea. Biden sent out checks. This is a thing that can happen.
Yes, we did it during the middle of a pandemic when we were trying desperately to deal with the impacts of the virus, healthcare, the impacts on the economy. This is, I think, in part, look, I have a problem. My tariffs, by the way, are most likely unconstitutional. So let me spend the money before I'm required to rebate them back to the people who deserve the money back, which is the American consumer that's paying more and more for tariffs that are unconstitutional. I mean, none of this makes sense because the truth is, and I think people know this, for the most corrupt administration in American history, here's a guy who has no theory of governance, no theory of anything. Okay, I woke up and I had an idea this morning. I'm just going to talk about it.
I would challenge that he does have a theory, which is tariffs, right? Like he's very much reshaped the economy in his image. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was asked about those potential tariff dividend checks. Here's what he had to say.
Is he going to be sending these direct payments to Americans of $2,000 or more?
We will see. We need legislation for that. So President Trump is committed to getting the money back to families.
You writing that bill? Where is it?
I mean, yes, you are right. He does have the theory that tariffs are good. Why that's the case is anyone's. And Frank, the Republican Party for decades and decades has talked about global trade, has talked about the importance both in terms of stabilizing not only the global economy, but our relationship with other nations of the world, trading partners. All that's gone away. The poor Republican Party, I feel bad for them, twisting themselves into pretzels.
Rob's right here. Rob, I know you're a fiscal hawk, but let me give you the last minute here.
Conservative, not a Republican.
Oh, fair. No, that distinction is real.
Audie, I would say there are appropriate times to send money to the citizens. Governor Youngkin in Virginia just did this because they were running a surplus. So individuals got $200 and couples got $400. The United States has a $38 trillion debt. Now is not the time to be cutting a check. What we should be doing is using any surplus to pay down that debt.
And that debt and that deficit was made worse when Donald Trump and the Republicans passed that horrible bill that gave rich people billions and billions of dollars in tax cuts.
The debt building in Washington was a bipartisan effort, I would say.
And lastly, I'm struck by the timing of this, where Donald Trump is saying American families are in real distress right now. We'll have the checks land just before midterms next year.
Not quite. Yeah. Well, Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Look at you laughing. Thank you. Well, now you're going to come back. You're going to regret that. You guys, we talked a lot this hour, and we're going to talk next. I think we have a little bit of time about what's in our group chat. And Congressman, to you, you said it's your daughter?
My sister is being honored at the Boys and Girls Club of Rochester for her work, and the family is all trying to figure out who's sitting where, because that's a big deal, which table.
Yes.
Brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles are sitting at.
Congratulations to her. Thank you all for waking up with us. The news headlines.